What's going on, basketball fans? Welcome to NBA Talk. I'm your host, Hani, and with the NBA Offseason now behind us, it's time to reflect and recap some of the winners and the losers of the offseason. So, let's get right into this. Alright, so in this episode we're going to be breaking down the top 5 winners of the offseason and the top 5 losers of the offseason. Now I will be interchanging between each category so we can have analysis on each. So starting off with the first winners of the offseason, and do I really need to explain why they're number 1 on my list? They're none other than the Golden State Warriors. Now, the Golden State Warriors honestly did the impossible. They got Kevin Durant in free agency. They got Kevin Durant to sign with them, I believe, on a 2-year, $60 million deal. And it's absolutely crazy what Golden State has accomplished. Not only do they have a core of Stephen Curry, Klay Thompson, and Draymond Green, they have now added Kevin Durant. This is an extremely scary team now. And honestly, from a basketball perspective, I really don't like this signing. I didn't really like the signing from the NBA's perspective. However, from Kevin Durant's perspective and the Warriors' perspective, I think they both won in this scenario because Kevin Durant, he wants a championship. What better way to get a championship than to go to the team that will get you the biggest possibility to do it? Golden State. And Golden State, they won because they got the best free agent on the market. So overall, it was a good offseason for Golden State. They were able to get Kevin Durant while also keeping their main core intact. And honestly, this next NBA season is going to be very terrifying if you're any other team in the NBA except the Warriors. Moving on with the first loser of the offseason, and it has to go to the Oklahoma City Thunder. Now, losing Kevin Durant is obviously a massive blow to Oklahoma City because Kevin Durant meant so much to the franchise. He was their number 1 guy. And the fact that they lost him now just leaves a lot of question marks with this franchise and what they're going to be doing moving forward. Especially when it relates to Russell Westbrook. Will he stay or will he leave? There are reports that might even plan on leaving. So Oklahoma City clearly lost his offseason. Losing Kevin Durant is obviously one of the worst things that could have happened, and it did. However, I don't think Oklahoma City is completely lost here. Now, yes, they did lose out this offseason. However, they can still recuperate if Sam Presti can make the right moves in order to appeal to Russell Westbrook. Russell Westbrook is the last hope of Oklahoma City. If Sam Presti wants to keep him, he's going to have to get some pieces onto that team. They got Victor Oladipo. They still got Steven Adams and Enes Kanter and those guys. So the team is still intact. That team that was beating Golden State 3-1 in the Western Conference Finals, that team is still intact. But Sam Presti needs to find that new guy to fill the void that Kevin Durant has now left. If he can do that, I think Russell Westbrook may even stay in Oklahoma City. So it's not lost. All is not lost in Oklahoma City, but this offseason was definitely a big L for Oklahoma City. Bringing it back over to the winning column, the second winner of the offseason, in my opinion, are the New York Knicks. Now, Knicks fans, you can stand up now because Phil Jackson finally woke up from whatever trance he's been in. He's been in New York for, I think, 2 or 3 seasons now. I think 2. And he finally decided to pick up the phone and make a phone call to get the free agent to sign. The first thing he did was get Derrick Rose, which was obviously, if you watched my video on the whole trade and how it went down, in my opinion, I thought it was a very good move for the New York because it's a low-risk move that can potentially become a franchise-saving move. Derrick Rose can potentially go back to MVP mode, and the Knicks might even be just good again. So then not only did they get Derrick Rose, they also got Joakim Noah. Joakim Noah, he's an energy guy. He's a guy who brings that defensive toughness, the hustle, the determination, the passion. He brings all those elements to the game. And I think by relocating to his hometown of New York, having that extra motivation of playing in his hometown, playing next to Derrick Rose, I think he's going to become a better player. He's going to play well for the Knicks. But along with that, they also got a quality backup in Brandon Jennings. Now, Brandon Jennings is a guy who I felt has been very underrated since he's gotten into the league. Since his days in Milwaukee, I've been watching this guy, and I've been mesmerized by this guy's play. He has a lot of skill. He has some talent. Now, because of his ACL injury that happened last year, it kind of reduced his value. But I still think that he can be a quality player, especially being a backup to Derrick Rose. New York is looking pretty good right now because last year they didn't really have a good point guard situation. But now you got Derrick Rose to start off the bench, Brandon Jennings. So New York did a great job with the guard work here. And finally, the last signing that New York did was getting Courtney Lee onto this team. Now, Courtney Lee is a solid player. He can stretch the floor, and he can also defend. And that was one of New York's biggest issues. They needed defense. And they got Courtney Lee to address that issue. So overall, I just felt that New York made the right moves that they needed to make. They're still not done yet. They're still not a contending team. But I think they're a much better team now than they were last year or the year before that. So overall, great offseason for the New York Knicks. And I'm excited to see New York basketball in the next season. And that brings me to the second loser of the offseason, and it is none other than the Brooklyn Nets. Now, honestly, I don't know what's wrong with Brooklyn. I really don't. This organization confuses me a lot. First of all, they go out and sign Jeremy Lin to a 3-year, $36 million contract. When I heard this, I was so confused by this. I was just like, why? Why would you sign a guy who is a backup point guard to be your starter? When you could have gone out, you could have offered Mike Conley all the money he wanted. But you chose to get Jeremy Lin. So I never understood that. Then you try to go for restricted free agents. You try to go for Alan Crabb. You try to go for Tyler Johnson. Good moves, right? But except Brooklyn, you guys forgot to remember that their teams can match the offer. So Brooklyn basically gave these guys really good offers only for those two players to be snatched back by their respective teams. Portland and Miami both matched the offer sheets. So Brooklyn basically lost out on those two. And finally, they go out and sign filler players because they knew they locked out in this scenario. So they got Louis Scola recently, and they also got Trevor Booker. I mean, Brooklyn clearly lost in this offseason. They tried to make moves, but it did not work out in the end. And I think Brooklyn has a lot of work to do, especially since they have no draft picks. So they need a lot of work. They need a lot of help. And this offseason was a complete failure, in my opinion. Bringing me back to the winning column now. The third winner of this year's NBA offseason are the Toronto Raptors. Now, Toronto was one of those quieter teams in the offseason. But however, the moves they made makes them a successful offseason. Masai Ujiri was playing this smart. He knew he had to fill the void at power forward, but he also knew he had to re-sign DeMar DeRozan. So that was the first thing he did. He re-signed DeMar DeRozan to a 5-year, $139 million deal, So that means DeMar DeRozan is locked up for the next 5 years, making just slightly under the max. Unfortunately, he had to let Bismack Biyombo walk, which was a good thing because Biyombo was asking for way too much money. Alright, then he because Masai knew he already drafted a young prospect, a cheaper prospect in Jakob Poeltl, who could be a solid backup for Jonas Valanciunas. And finally, as of recently, he went out and he signed Jared Sullinger. Now, Jared Sullinger was signed to a 1-year, $6 million. This was a very cheap and affordable gamble. Jared Sullinger is not a bad player. He's been a quality role player in Boston for a long time now. And with his ability to stretch the floor and be a body in the paint, I think he's going to be a great fit alongside Jonas Valanciunas. And as I mentioned, he's only being paid for 1 year, $6 million. So this relates back to similarly what Masai did with Bismack Biyombo last year, where he got a guy who had been undervalued, got him for cheap, and then let him flourish in your system. And I think that's going to happen for Jared Sullinger. And I'm really excited to see how this Toronto team is going to go forward after getting to the Eastern Conference Finals. What are they going to do next now that they've pretty much kept their team intact, and are going to see what they're going to do moving forward. So Toronto overall had a successful offseason. They managed to accomplish the two things they needed to do. Bringing me back to the losing side of the spectrum. The third loser of the offseason are the Orlando Magic. Now, some of you may be a little bit confused as to why I'm saying Orlando lost here. Sure, Orlando got some good players. They got Serge Ibaka, first of all. Then they got Bismack Biyombo. Then they also got Jeff Green. But they lost Victor Oladipo. So this is where my confusion comes in with the Orlando Magic. You basically got a rental of Serge Ibaka, so you don't even know if he's going to stay or not. You signed Bismack Biyombo to $70 million over 4 years. That's a big commitment to give to a guy who only had one breakout season. He only broke out in Toronto's system. Who knows how he's going to do in Orlando. And Orlando is basically paying a bench guy, a rotational guy, $70 million over the next 4 years. So clearly, Orlando is all over the place. They just got a whole bunch of big men, and now we don't know what they're going to do. You know, instead of filling up their guard depth and strengthening up their entire team, they only decided to focus on the front court, which now leaves so many question marks about what are they going to do in the future, who's going to lead the offense, who are you going to give the ball to. And there's just so many questions with this Orlando team, and that's why I think this was a failing offseason for Orlando. Because Orlando, you know, they didn't really address their needs. They just tried to add players who had value and had significant impact on other teams and brought them into Orlando to see, okay, let's bring any of these guys in. Okay, Biyombo, Ibaka, Jeff Green, yeah, I'll bring you too. So Orlando, we don't know. I never understood anything they did this offseason, which is why I think they lost out in this year's offseason. Bringing it back to the winning side, the fourth winner of the NBA offseason are the Chicago Bulls. Now, Chicago fans, you can now stand up too, because you may have lost Derrick Rose, one of your hometown sons, Chicago's sons, but you got back Dwayne Wade in return. Another Chicago native playing for the Bulls. Yes, it happened. Dwayne Wade left Miami. He was tired of Pat Riley forcing him to take less money, and Dwayne Wade finally snapped and he said, well, you know what, Pat, if you're not going to pay me my money, I'm going to go to somewhere where I can get my money. And he went back home to Chicago. So not only did Chicago sign Dwayne Wade, but they also got Rajon Rondo as well. So now this Bulls team is looking a lot better with the core of Rondo, Butler, and Wade. This team is looking a lot better, and I'm really excited to see what Chicago is going to do with with this core. I think Dwayne Wade still has a good two years left. Jimmy Butler is obviously an all-star. Rondo distributing the ball to those two. This is going to be a good year for Chicago, and I have that feeling in my mind that Chicago will make it back to the playoff and will hopefully gain some success. So this was overall a great offseason for Chicago. Not only did they get rid of Derrick Rose, but they also started fresh, and now they've gotten back into a position where they can compete in the East. So overall, successful offseason for Chicago, making it a win. Now moving it back to the losing side, the next team on my list are the Washington Wizards. Now, just like the Orlando Magic, I just don't understand what Washington's trying to do here. They made little to no moves in this offseason, except re-sign Bradley Beal.
It was at this moment that he knew. He fucked up.
To a huge 5-year, $140-ish million contract. Bruh. That's the only move they made, other than trading for Trey Burke. I don't know what Washington's trying to do here. After having success in the playoffs the past few years, and then coming into last year where they were completely trash, I don't understand what are they doing here. Are they trying to lose on purpose, or are they trying to tank that badly? Because this is bad, not only for the organization, but for John Wall. John Wall is the sole bright spot of Washington. He's the only reason Washington is winning games. And that's because management isn't getting him surrounded by players who can help him win. There's nobody in Washington anymore. They had some success with Jared Dudley, but they now lost him too. Bradley Beal, there's a whole bunch of question marks with him. Can he keep his health right? Can he stay injury-free for an entire season? There's just so many question marks with this team. And honestly, if this doesn't change, if Washington doesn't realize that they need to start making some moves, I think John Wall should leave. Because John Wall is really just wasting his time in Washington, that means. So overall, this was a complete failure, in my opinion. Washington didn't do anything to strengthen their team. They didn't add any depth. They didn't remove some players. They just kept their team the same, re-signed, locked up Bradley Beal for the next 5 years, and brought in Trey Burke. So, yeah, overall, I just don't understand what Washington's trying to do here. And I think this is going to be another bad year in DC. Finally, the last winner, in my opinion, of the 2016 NBA offseason are the Boston Celtics. Now, Boston is an interesting team. They have a bunch of assets. They are probably in the best situation for free agents to come into. If you watched my video on Kevin Durant's decision, what Kevin Durant's decision should have been, I said Boston could have been a viable option for him because Boston had the young talent, the assets, and they're in the East, so it makes them even easier to compete for the championship. Boston may have lucked out on Kevin Durant, but they got Al Horford. Al Horford is a quality big man who still has some good years left into him. And now that they got Al Horford, Boston still has enough room to trade for a player. or try to get another guy in to strengthen this core even more. And there have been rumors circulating that Boston may even be in the mix to try to get Russell Westbrook. So if they get Russell Westbrook, just think about this team. Just think about it with Isaiah Thomas, Jay Crowder, Avery Bradley, Al Horford, and potentially Russell Westbrook. You're looking at a pretty good team right here. And along with number 3 overall pick Jaylen Brown, like this team is honestly in a good position for the future, and it's gonna be very interesting to see like how this team is gonna grow from here and what Danny Ainge is gonna do. But overall, this was a pretty successful offseason for Boston, and I don't think it's over yet. I think Danny Ainge still may have one more trick up his sleeve that he might want to pull this offseason and try to maneuver another big 3 of Boston. So overall, another winning offseason for Danny Ainge and the Boston Celtics, which brings us to our final team on our list. And it is the final losing team of the 2016 NBA offseason. And the honor goes to none other than your very own Los Angeles Lakers. Now, the Lakers confuse me sometimes. Like, it doesn't make any sense. Because I think somebody in the Lakers front office is smoking something very strong. Like Jim Buss he's smoking something. I don't know what it is. I don't want to know what it is. But he's smoking something. Because if this guy doesn't realize that he is killing one of the richest franchises in NBA history, then you know there's something wrong with this guy. Now, from day 1 of free agency, actually, as a matter of fact, in the first hour of free agency, the Lakers made a move that completely ruined my hopes of them having a good offseason. Within the first hour of free agency, the Los Angeles Lakers signed Timothy Mozgov to a $64 million contract over 4 years.
Bruh.
Timothy Mozgov, the guy who played only 15 minutes total in the entire playoffs. Like, I don't get it, man. Like, I don't know what Jim Buss and Mitch Kupchak, I don't know what the hell are they doing. You are the Los Angeles Lakers. You have a shit ton of money. And you choose to go for Mozgov? Mozgov? It was ridiculous. That was the move that threw me off completely. And it just ruined my faith in Los Angeles. Making it one of the biggest, bust moves I have ever seen. Along with that, the Lakers also re-signed Jordan Clarkson to a 4-year, $50 million deal. I thought that move is one of the best moves that LA made. They kept Jordan Clarkson, who I thought was going to leave. I thought Jordan Clarkson was gone, but he decided to stay. He decided to give LA some pity, and he stayed with the team that drafted him. And because of the Lakers, they also signed Luol Deng as well, if anyone cares. But there you have it. Your Los Angeles Lakers are your worst offseason team of the 2016 NBA offseason. And there you have it. Those are my list. Let me know in the comment section down below. Do you agree with my list? If not, who do you think were the winners and who do you think were the losers of the offseason? I would like to know what you guys think in the comment section down below. Anyways, I hope you enjoyed this episode. Leave the episode a like if you enjoyed it. Subscribe to this channel. I don't know why you haven't already. For more future episodes of NBA Talk. And yeah, as always, thank you so much for watching. And I'll see you all in the next episode of NBA Talk. Thanks for watching.